So I made a comic, a one-page comic. I think it would be pretty fun to look at the time-lapse recording that I got of it and talk about my process. So here's the comic.
It's him. Looks like it's the end of the line for me.
How unfortunate you are. If you were any weaker, I could hold myself back. Ame, tiramisu. He'll be fine. Very first thing that you're doing making a comic is you're figuring out composition. So the final composition is not what I started with. Very first thing I tried, horizontal line. It's generally good to start with a environment shot, establishing shot, something like that. And while in the final I had it vertical, I originally was like, okay, just slap down a horizontal one because in the like very initial process of figuring out where the panels are going to go, what shapes there, the composition, it's very fluid. Things can change a lot. So while I start with this horizontal, it doesn't work that well because in the final comic, Itachi is supposed to be imposing. So I figured that I'll switch that to vertical. And so you'll have the environment shot here. He can be like above the main character somehow, right? And then on the side, I wanted to do the cool anime thing where you have someone talking and then a much closer up thing of, whatever relevant part of them while they do the thing that they're talking about doing. So in the top panel, he'd be like, "Oh, I have such a strong attack." I don't know what Itachi sounds like. I've never seen the Naruto dub, but he's like, "Oh, I have such a strong attack," and then he does the attack, which is Ame Tiramisu. I initially had it like this, but I changed it in a second. I changed it because to be offset like this, where the top panel is larger than the bottom panel. This is because you want contrast. Contrast is great. Unless you are intentionally trying to do something for repetition. You want panels that are next to each other or close to each other to look visually very different from each other. So what's good here is that this one, it's about the same shape as this one, but it's a lot taller. Bonus points, that allows me to show more of Itachi, so it works much better as like a cool character shot. This is the action shot. That's the money shot. And then here, it's okay if it's really squeezed in, like zoomed in, like really horizontal, really wide aspect ratio, because it's focusing in on a specific body part. That's okay, because you've already established what Itachi looks like up here. You don't need to do that down here. You just need to show what's important. So having that is great. It also means that because this is short, I'm not pushing into this space too much. I still have a lot of space at the bottom, and that's a good because I had an idea that the final panel would show the entirety or close to a lot of the body of the guy who was being, attacked by tiramisu. It's when the music would like pick up, the camera would move a lot more if this was animated. So diagonal's good for this. And then so that sort of like brings diagonal into this because they're connected and you generally want evenly wide spaces in between panels, because otherwise it just looks kind of weird. For the sketching, I was trying to be pretty loose with it. I was thinking about the purpose of each panel. This panel, it's the money shot. He's supposed to look cool. I know what composition I have to work with. So I'll have him, be in the center because he's the center focus. And I can have like speech bubble here and here maybe. Because, actually, I'll go back. I'll go more into it when the speech bubbles actually come. Sorry. For the panel below it, because it's a close-up, it's really easy to lose track of anatomy because you don't have a lot of reference markers. Your brain doesn't have a lot of reference markers when you're drawing it. So what I did is I got a 3D model and I got it into the focal length I want and the position I want, and then I traced over it. And in the meantime, it looks like this. And that is very useful. But what I would recommend is what I'm doing here is you have the 3D model. You can trace over it. That's fine. Get your anatomy. But after you do that, after you trace, wait 1 second, get rid of it. And then redraw over a lot of that stuff to make sure it looks good on the page. Because that's what you're drawing. You are not making a 3D scene. You are drawing on a page. So what matters is it looks good on the page within the limits of like the two-dimensionality of the page. It doesn't matter if it's like perfectly 3D accurate. It doesn't matter. Just do what looks good, what you think looks good. Listen to your brain. Hone your instincts. That's like the main thing of getting back to this. Hone your instincts. What do you think looks good? Why do you think that looks good? Try a few things out. And then, yeah, you're basically just trying to build your instincts of like, what makes it look good? And I decided to close the eye right now because I wanted more focus on it. For the actual background shot, it also does not have to be fancy. In fact, it should not be fancy, especially for an establishing shot for like a one-page thing. You want to show who is relevant in here. In this case, it's Itachi and like Mr. Jobber. And then show like the tone of it. Itachi is silhouetted against a clear sky and he's up high up. This guy's looking up. He's like crouched down. He looks scared, right? You can tell who is in the position of power, and he's like mysterious because he's got the sleeve blowing in the wind. If you're an anime character and you actually put your arms in your sleeves, try again. You got your tree to the side because it looks cool. And what I tried to do is you have the lines of the cliff. Cliff doesn't need to be detailed. It can just be a cliff. Have the lines of the cliff go away from the centerpiece, which is Itachi. The tree, its trunk is going away from the centerpiece, which is right below Itachi, but it's close enough. Where the speech bubble is, right next to Itachi. If you go like anywhere from this speech bubble to like anything, you're gonna hit Itachi. So the whole point of this is to drag your eyes screaming across the points of interest there. Speech bubble, Itachi, cliff, that's where you are. Guy, there's probably another speech bubble there that I add later, I think. And then in the bottom one, it's when it goes from being serious to being a joke, right? That's sort of the funny here. It goes from being extremely serious to being a guy in the goofy expression. So the entire point of this panel, expressiveness. Don't care about like anatomy correctness. Just to have it be expressive as possible. So you want expressiveness. You want to push that. Look how big that guy's mouth is. Think about One Piece. One Piece does this really, really well. And I do a few things more in the actual inking process to push this even further. And then I also needed to do tiramisu that was in the shape of Amaterasu, like roughly. Like, I think you get the idea. I do a few things later to make sure that it's the reader's like, oh, this is tiramisu and not like French fries or something. But we'll get to that later. Yeah, so now for the inking, which is a problem because I don't have as good advice to say about inking. It is generally, you're building up instinct. You're building up anatomy knowledge. Use reference to get things like face shape and eyes. If you're doing character that's pre-existing or going off a character sheet, use that reference that you have. The human brain's going to look at something, and the main thing it's going to look at is eyes, face shape, like hair, any like distinct shapes, silhouette, that sort of thing. That's how you recognize a person, right? You can tweak other like minor things like, oh, do you draw ears in a different way? Who cares? Hand pose, who cares? Actually, the hand pose, as you're about to see, goes incredibly hard. I'm very proud of this. Please compliment me on it. I won't do anything, but please compliment me on it. Aside from that, use line thickness when you think it's necessary. It doesn't need to be super like a lot of variation. Here there's not a ton of line variation. Like, it's going to be thinner and more delicate near the facial features. That's fine because the face is going to be the area of highest detail. Generally, that's where your eyes are going to go. And it's important here because the face is what's being zoomed in on the second panel. So you really want that to be clear. You want the audience to be like, oh, that's a face. That's Itachi's face. You can see his eyes. Look, it's his eyes connected together. You want continuity. And I have thicker lines along the outline of the shape because that tends to make it look more solid. Not every art style does this. It doesn't have to. That's what I personally like. When people talk about like art style, I don't know. It's really interesting because I don't think that art style is a thing in the way that a lot of people say it's a thing. I think that art style is literally just, what are your preferences? What are your inclinations? What are the things you know how to do? And then below all those is intent. So like, I know that you can develop a specific art style for a specific project, and that is made with intent. But like, if you just draw something naturally, it's just going to be your inclinations. What do you prefer? So I prefer having like not a ton of line variation, but having it like a little bit, and then having a thick outline or like a slightly thick outline, not going overly hard on detail, which I have a problem with the second panel because I hatched it way too much and I didn't reference a face. And eye anatomy, like the area around the eye, is incredibly complicated, and I'm not an expert in it. I should have referenced that. You see, I'm like scrambling to like, oh, how do I make it look better? And I ended up making it look worse because I thought that the nose is smaller than it actually should be at this distance because zoomed in, really hard to judge anatomy. But I'll fix that later. And in the background, in the environment shot, doesn't need to be too detailed. You have some lines being like, oh, that's a cliff. That's a cliff. You know, they have things connect to other things. Whoa, that's a tree. I like having the horizontal rings around the like the bulgy parts of the tree where there's like a direction change usually. I think that looks good in tree-like. Other people do it differently, but that's how I like to do it. It's not overly complicated. I'll have like a little shadow in the leaves because I like to do that. Itachi here, he's not the most detailed. He's just a little blob man, and that's great. He shows the direction of the wind. He has his pose. You can easily tell that, like, oh, this is the same guy as this guy. That's what's important. And then the guy, basically the same principles. You don't need to go too hard in the detail. You just show like the important parts, like, oh, he's a ninja. He's holding a kunai. He has a headband. That's ninja-like, and he has a thick outline because that's also good for differentiating him from the background. And here's when I actually do the dialogue. What I didn't do here for some of them, which you may have seen earlier when I just resized the tiramisu one, is I did the speech bubbles first. Don't do that. Always do the text first. And the text does not need to be final when you write out the text, but it should follow the flow of what you're trying to do. So if someone so you can think like in a conversation, is someone going to say something, pause, then say another thing? That's important to think about. Think about the cadence when you're doing text. The actual words don't matter so much. You can always change those. I mean, you can always change the speech bubbles too, but it's kind of annoying sometimes. Speech bubble placement is really important because speech bubbles are generally going to be the areas of highest contrast in the piece because it's black text on white in like a black line that's pretty thick usually. So that's what your eyes are going to be drawn towards. So you want to draw them across things that are important. So here it's like, well, speech bubble, Itachi, speech bubble. Speech bubble, Itachi, speech bubble. And it generally helps to go from top down right for like left to right, top to down style. If it's manga, it would be the reverse. You would start in the top right and then go like that. But the idea is that you draw the reader's attention across the page, across the things that are important. So you start here, top left, because that's where you start reading. Whoa, Itachi's there. Other important thing here, speech bubble, Itachi, speech bubble. It's important. You go down because there's nowhere else to go, and this is a high area of contrast, even like sort of similar shape to a speech bubble. And then you have a speech bubble here, so you know the action and the text going around the action, and then there's nowhere to go, so you just go down and then sort of like allow yourself to soak in this big piece all at once. I probably could have done that better, but the actual text for this final one doesn't really matter, as you'll see. It's just him going like, ah. It's fine. It's just supposed to be a panel of energy without flow to it, and that's fine because this is a one-page comic. There's nothing after this. It's just this. Oh yeah, and for the tiramisu, in order to not overcomplicate it, I only did the outline with like a little straggler, a few stragglers in the middle, because otherwise there's going to be a bunch of noise. Look up the Squirrel House Simpsons. It's funny and relevant. And I tried, I think I use like the India ink brush. Doesn't matter. Use whatever looks good. I thicken up the lines, even though that's for the speech bubble, even though it's different from the other speech bubbles, because I think it looks good and it needed more contrast and separation. Like literally, just if you have an idea, try it. And then you'll get a better sense of what ideas are good and what ideas are bad. So right here, this could be your final. Like I would probably have like his cloak be black instead of white if it's like black and white. But other than that, this could just be a comic. Color is a thing that I am less experienced in. So what I wanted to do here initially, my plan was a very flat and literal color space, and I immediately go against that with like the gradients in the sky. And once you get something like a gradient, like to show like, oh, this is how like a sunrise would look, then you give the readers an expectation of realism that sort of breaks the flatness of everything else in here, because I color everything like it's being very neutrally lit, even though I color the sky like it is not neutrally lit. And also I add the stars. Don't add stars like this. It's very noisy and has no hierarchy. It's just like very evenly distributed. They're all the same size. I fix it later by selectively soft erasing a lot of them and then adding in a few larger stars just gives them variation. I start with like very literal colors, and here's where the lack of referencing face anatomy is coming to bite me, because this just kind of looked physically gross to me when I added in the color, and it annoyed me so much that I did several revisions. And here I'm desperately trying to make the tiramisu look like tiramisu, and I think I did okay. I definitely could do better, but I didn't. Uh, and now you have tiramisu. And this is around when I was like, oh, I'm done, right? And then I wasn't done. This is where I start this is where I start frantically tweaking. I was like, oh, that looks weird. That looks gross. Ew, get rid of that. Get rid of the hatching. And I add more hatching. Okay, let's add shading where the hatching is. That's got to look good. Gradient, that's going to make it look better, right, guys? I was scrambling a lot and not exactly sure what I want to do. And generally what I found when that's the case, oh, here's where I fix the stars. It looks a lot nicer here. Generally what helps a lot is going simple with it. Don't go overcomplicated with it. I got rid of the airbrush in here. I am about to get rid of the airbrush in there. I'm going to get rid of this edge highlighting, even though it looks kind of cool and it's like the tiramisu is on fire or like bright, but I thought it was too complicated. And this was when I decided that the unlit color palette does not fit very well, and it took me a while to figure out that. So I just slapped a multiply layer on everything. I do brighten this up later, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it makes it fit the scene a lot better. It allows me to give contrast to the eyes. It makes the headband look a lot cooler. And here you just saw me like do, oh, I'll do some fancy shading. Nope, get rid of it. Airbrush is fine. Do a red airbrush. It's a glow. It's fine. It's subtle. And then I try some more edge lights here on the guy. Dude, who cares? No. Oh my god. And then I end up just in a second just doing a light over him, and then I add a little bloom effect because it looks nice. But here, I did want to keep some sort of cell shading because this is highly close up and already very detailed with the hatching and the eye and all that. So I wanted to have some sort of cell shading for to make it look like real and dimensional. So I had that in, but it made it simpler, right? Instead of having like a gradient here, there's like random bits of unshaded parts. No, it's one solid shape that like follows the brow wrinkle and the nose, and then that's all you need. And then I lighten everything up by a little bit, just messing with like the colors and luminance of the whole thing, and I am done.